Welcome to RP Revenge.
The air smelled like lemon polish and disdain. Elena had noticed it the moment she and her mother stepped through the mahogany doors of the Halberts estate, her husband's childhood home, gleaming with old money and silent judgment. The house didn't just stand, it loomed. A grand staircase split in two directions, chandeliers dripping light like melted gold, walls lined with oil portraits of ancestors whose eyes followed you no matter where you stood. She had told her mother, Rosa, to bring her nicest dress. Rosa had ironed it 3 times anyway. She'd even packed a small tin of her homemade dulce de leche cookies as a gesture for her son-in-law's family. Elena had smiled at the gesture. But now, standing inside that mansion, she realized her mother's warmth didn't belong here. Neither did she. "Welcome," drawled Patricia Halbert, her mother-in-law, her voice coated in a sugary politeness that made Elena's stomach tighten. "Oh, you brought company." Elena's husband, Daniel, slipped an arm around her waist. "Mom, this is Rosa. You met her at the wedding." "Of course," Patricia said, smiling with her teeth but not her eyes. "How could I forget?" Her gaze swept over Rosa's modest floral dress, her slightly scuffed shoes. Then, just as quickly, Patricia turned to the butler. "Show them to their rooms." Rooms. Plural. But not equal. They followed the butler up the curved staircase. The house was cold in a way that didn't come from temperature. Even the air seemed to hush itself, afraid to disturb the quiet dominance that reigned here. Daniel's old room was neat, sterile almost, as if it had been preserved as a shrine. "And for your mother." The butler's pause was heavy. He gestured toward a narrow door at the end of the hall. Rosa's smile flickered. "Oh, I can share with my daughter. No trouble at all." But the butler had already opened the door. A closet. Literally. There was a cot pressed against one wall, a thin pillow, a single bulb dangling above. Elena felt her heart plummet. "This is..." Patricia appeared at her side. "It's temporary," she said with that same gentle poison in her voice. "We weren't expecting an extra guest. The house is full." Full. In a house with 9 bedrooms. Rosa smiled, soft and embarrassed. "It's okay, Mija. I don't need much." Elena's throat burned. She wanted to scream. She wanted Daniel to say something. Anything. He cleared his throat. "Mom, maybe." But Patricia had already turned away, her heels clicking on marble. Rosa touched her daughter's arm. "Please, don't make a fuss. I'm fine. It's just a place to sleep." Elena nodded numbly. But inside, something shifted, a crack, small but sharp. A soundless snap of something she didn't yet recognize as the beginning of hatred. Dinner was worse. The dining room glittered with silverware and stiff smiles. Patricia sat at the head, Daniel beside her, his father across from him, eyes buried in his wine. Elena sat halfway down the long table, her mother beside her, like distant guests at their own meal. Every time Rosa spoke, softly, kindly, with her slight accent, Patricia's lips twitched. Daniel noticed, Elena could tell, but he didn't defend her. He just kept cutting his steak, nodding at his mother's stories, pretending not to hear the subtle jabs. When Rosa offered her cookies after dinner, Patricia laughed lightly. "Oh, how sweet. But we don't really eat that kind of thing." That kind of thing. Elena reached under the table and squeezed her mother's hand. Rosa smiled back, small and brave, but her eyes were wet. Later, in their room, Elena whispered, "We're leaving tomorrow." Daniel blinked, confused. "What? Why?" "She made my mom sleep in a closet." "Daniel. A closet." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You're overreacting. You know how my mom is, she doesn't mean it like that." "How else could she mean it?" Elena's voice trembled. "She humiliated her." "Elena, please." His tone turned firm. "Let's not start drama. This weekend is about family." She stared at him. "Family?" Her laugh cracked. "Yours, maybe." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house sounded like a whisper. Every soft groan of wood reminded her that her mother, her gentle, giving mother, was lying on a cot in a closet, alone. She got up and padded down the hall. The door to the closet room was cracked open. Inside, her mother slept curled up, her hand resting over her heart, as if protecting something fragile inside her. Elena leaned against the doorframe, her throat tight. For the first time, she looked at her marriage not as a promise, but as a cage she had willingly stepped into. In the darkness, something inside her began to harden. The next morning, Patricia was all smiles again. "Did you sleep well, dear?" she asked Rosa at breakfast. Rosa nodded. "Yes, thank you. Very comfortable." A lie wrapped in grace. Elena caught her mother's eye, but Rosa shook her head almost imperceptibly. "Don't fight this battle. It's not worth it." But it was. Because that morning, Elena saw it, a flicker of something between her husband and his mother. Not lust, but allegiance. A quiet, unspoken pact of loyalty that did not include her. And that was when she realized she'd never truly belonged to Daniel. She belonged to the Halberts. When they finally left the estate 2 days later, Rosa smiled and waved goodbye. Elena didn't. She didn't trust herself not to spit venom. Daniel held her hand on the drive home. "See? It wasn't that bad," he said. She looked out the window, her reflection pale and unreadable. "You really didn't see it, did you?" "See what?" Her voice came out like broken glass. "How small she made my mother feel. How small she made me feel." He didn't answer. And in that silence, Elena decided something. The next time Patricia Halbert tried to humiliate her family, she would make sure there was something left to humiliate. That night, as Daniel slept, Elena sat in the dark, her phone glowing in her hands. She opened the email her husband had accidentally left open a week before, the one labeled property transfer agreement. The sender, Patricia Halbert. And the attachment, a scanned deed with Daniel's signature at the bottom. He hadn't told her. The house they were supposed to buy together, the one she'd been decorating in her mind for months, was gone. Sold. To Patricia's company. Behind her back. Elena's breath hitched. The betrayal didn't come as a scream this time. It came as a slow, steady heartbeat of realization. They hadn't just humiliated her mother. They'd played her. And they'd done it smiling. Elena stared at the document until the screen dimmed. Her reflection looked ghostly against the glow. He had signed it. He had given away the house she thought they'd build their lives in. To his mother. Her chest felt hollow, but her mind was alive, racing, assembling every memory, every soft excuse she'd ever made for Daniel. The way he deferred to his mother's opinions. The subtle shifts in tone when Patricia called. The way he'd laugh at her condescension, say, "That's just how she is." No, Elena thought. That's how you are. She locked the phone, slipped it back onto the nightstand, and watched him sleep. His breathing was steady, his hand resting loosely across his chest, the same chest she had once rested her head against, believing it was safe. It wasn't safety. It was shelter under a collapsing roof. By morning, she had a plan. The next few weeks passed in quiet precision. Elena smiled when she needed to, played the part of the forgiving wife. She even sent Patricia a thank you note for hosting. It was perfect, gracious, warm, the kind of letter that would hang framed in Patricia's mind as proof of her superiority. Meanwhile, Elena began her research. Patricia Halbert ran a small real estate consultancy, Halbert Holdings, a family firm with old money connections and new money greed. Daniel worked for her part-time, handling contracts and investment portfolios. Elena had always thought that was temporary, a favor to help him transition after law school. But now she realized it wasn't a favor. It was a leash. And her husband had learned to wear it willingly. She spent her evenings quietly at the dining table, pretending to browse furniture online while digging through public records, property databases, corporate filings. Patricia's company was tidy. Too tidy. A little too perfect. Every financial record gleamed, except one. A small discrepancy in tax filings from 3 years prior. A missed declaration that could, if seen by the right eyes, raise very interesting questions. Elena smiled to herself. She didn't need to destroy them violently. All she had to do was open the door and let them destroy each other. Her first move was subtle. A dinner with Daniel's colleague, Michael, who worked in accounting. They'd met once before, briefly, but this time she invited him and his wife out for drinks. Casual. Friendly. She wore red, not a bright, flirtatious red, but a deep one, the color of resolve. Between sips of wine and laughter, she asked questions. Innocent ones at first. Then, quietly, the right one. Do you ever get the sense Halbert Holdings hides things? Michael blinked, surprised. His wife looked up. Elena shrugged, feigning embarrassment. I probably shouldn't say that. Daniel would kill me if he knew I mentioned it. Michael hesitated. Then he leaned in. You didn't hear it from me, but, yeah, something's off. I've been auditing some of their transactions. There's a property sale that doesn't match the declaration reports. I'm sure it's nothing, but... She smiled, softly. But maybe it's not. 2 weeks later, an anonymous email reached the local financial regulatory office. Attached were carefully selected documents, copies she'd quietly taken from Daniel's home laptop, mixed with public data. The subject line read, Potential fraud within Halbert Holdings LLC. No names. No direct accusations. Just enough smoke to make someone look for the fire. Then she waited. Daniel came home late one night, his tie loose, his face pale. Elena, he said, his voice strained. Something's going on at Mom's office. They're under investigation. She looked up from the couch, feigning concern. Oh no. What happened? I don't know. Someone sent documents, false ones, I think, about some old real estate deals. Mom's furious. She thinks someone's targeting the company. She tilted her head. That's awful. He rubbed his face. They even froze one of the accounts temporarily. It's bad. She's scared. Elena reached for his hand, squeezing gently. You'll figure it out. You always do. Inside, her heart was steady, cold, deliberate. She didn't feel joy. Not yet. Revenge wasn't satisfaction. It was patience, sharpened and honed. Patricia called 2 days later. Elena, her voice cracked, brittle now. You wouldn't happen to know anything about what's happening, would you? The accusation was thinly veiled. Elena almost laughed. Me. Patricia, I wouldn't even know where to begin with that sort of thing. Silence stretched on the line. Then, in a voice stripped of Polish, Patricia whispered, Whoever's doing this is going to regret it. Oh, I'm sure they will, Elena murmured. Eventually. The investigation spiraled. Accounts frozen. Clients withdrawing. Whispers spreading like wildfire through the local business circle. Daniel was caught in the middle, trying to protect his mother, juggling legal calls, sleepless nights, and mounting panic. He barely noticed Elena growing distant. He didn't see her reclaiming pieces of herself, one quiet act at a time. When he finally did notice, it was too late. It happened on a rain-slick night. Daniel came home to find their living room stripped bare. No pictures, no ornaments, no warmth. Just Elena sitting at the dining table, a small envelope in front of her. What's going on? He asked, voice raw. I'm leaving, she said. His confusion flashed to anger. Now. When my family's being torn apart. She met his gaze, calm and unflinching. Exactly. He stepped closer, eyes narrowing. You know something about this, don't you? She smiled faintly. I know enough. Elena, he said, the name more like a plea. You don't understand what you've done. You're ruining lives. She stood slowly. No, Daniel. I'm reminding people what happens when they think others don't have one. The next day, Rosa helped her pack. I didn't think you'd actually do it, her mother said quietly. Elena paused, folding a sweater. Neither did I. But I realized something. What's that? That forgiveness only works when someone's capable of shame. Rosa touched her cheek gently, tears in her eyes. You're stronger than I ever was. Elena smiled. Because you taught me grace. I just learned to weaponize it. Months passed. The Halberts' empire crumbled. News spread of their financial mismanagement, tax discrepancies, and quiet settlements. Patricia withdrew from social life, her reputation in tatters. Daniel tried to rebuild, but every door closed before him. No firm wanted the son of a scandal. Elena never reached out. She didn't need to. The silence between them spoke loud enough. Instead, she started her own business, modest, clean, honest. She named it Rosa and Company and filled it with women who had stories like hers. Underestimated, overlooked, humiliated. She gave them jobs, dignity, and something rarer, belonging. Sometimes, late at night, she thought about that house. The one with the closet. The one that smelled of lemon polish and disdain. And she wondered if Patricia ever thought of that night, the sound of a door closing softly, marking the end of everything she thought she controlled. One spring evening, a letter arrived. Handwritten. The paper smelled faintly of perfume, old, familiar. Elena. You may think you've won. But you've destroyed your husband in the process. I hope you can live with that. Patricia. Elena read it once, then again. Then she smiled. She took out a pen and wrote a single line on the back. He was destroyed long before I arrived. I just stopped pretending to rebuild him. She left it unsent. Instead, she folded it neatly, placed it in a box labeled lessons, and tucked it away. Then she went to the kitchen, where her mother was baking cookies, the same kind Patricia had once mocked. The smell filled the house with warmth. Rosa looked up and smiled. These still make you happy? Elena nodded. They remind me of everything I survived. They ate together quietly, the room filled with the sounds of laughter, sugar, and something like peace. Outside, the rain started again. Soft, cleansing, relentless. And in the rhythm of it, Elena heard not vengeance, not bitterness. But justice, finally realized.